Welcome to the Emotions with Ease podcast. I am Jamie Glenn, an emotional wellness coach for families. And today we have a treat because I have one of my dear friends, Jennifer Freeman, on the podcast to talk to us about spiritual formation. It's Christmas time as we are recording this. And so a lot of times Christmas can feel very chaotic. And even though I think as moms, we really try to hone in on making meaningful memories, meaningful traditions for our families, sometimes it can just feel really, really overwhelming. So I thought bringing in my good friend Jennifer to just kind of talk to us about how do we really guide our kids in this spiritual formation path throughout the year, but then also during the Christmas time season. So, Jennifer, thanks so much for being on here. I'm going to go ahead and read your bio so that everyone can know who you are and what you're about. Jennifer
Okay.
Freeman is first and foremost a follower of Jesus. Her calling has shaped every aspect of her professional life, whether teaching in the classroom, speaking at conferences, writing, mentoring, or serving in the local church. For 25 years, Jennifer served as Director of Christian Formation at College of the Ozarks. Today, she continues that work as a faculty member in Christian Formation. Recently, she developed Rooted Families, a set of resources designed to help children and caregivers grow together in their faith journey. These materials highlight Christian development from infancy through college and are available by emailing rootedfamilies@cofo.edu. Jennifer lives in Northwest Arkansas with her husband, Jim, and their beagle, Dobby. Is it Dobby?
hmm
What a cute name. Okay, I'm
Like the
put
house, like
put
the
a pin
house
in
elf,
that. What is it? Like what?
the house elf on Harry Potter.
Okay, listen. You need to know this about me. I have not read a Harry Potter book and I've not seen a Harry Potter movie.
Sorry, but
I
lots of people
know.
have, and the house elf has really cute ears, and that's what Dobby has is really cute ears.
I love that. And I'm not making it's not like a moral stance. It's just that I have not given time to the thing that is Harry Potter. Okay, I'm going to continue. They love being close to their two adult children and six spectacular grandchildren. Jennifer also serves as a spiritual mentor and coach for individuals in all stages of life. Her greatest joy is helping others deepen their relationship with God and lean into the hope of Jesus' daily presence. To learn more or connect with Jennifer, visit jenniferfreeman.co. Jennifer, I am so grateful that you are on this podcast because here's the deal. Everything in your bio, well, maybe not everything, like not your kids and family life, but I have been a recipient of all things spiritual formation from you. You were my mentor in college. You even got a shout out. It's probably been a couple of months ago, but you got a shout out on the podcast because you really were the catalyst for me getting into mental health, counseling, coaching. The conversations that we had when I was in college, I still can remember some of those. Now, not all
Mhm.
of them because we talked a lot. I think that we met weekly, right? Like starting from my freshman year, you and I met weekly. Is that right?
We did.
Oh my
We
word.
did.
And you just poured into me. And that is true of so many college aged, when they were in college. So now adults who I'm sure have children like I do now, you've just, what a legacy that you have. That's so wonderful.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad to have you on here
Mhm.
and be able to see your face today.
Thank you. It's sweet to be with you too. I do remember many of those conversations. Um, and it's always a joy. It's always
Yeah,
a joy to reflect back on them, but to see who you have become and how you help others as well. So
I love
the
that.
cycle goes on.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The cycle goes on. So we're just going to dive right in and
Okay.
I'm going to ask you some questions so that we can glean some of your wisdom in the next few minutes on just all things spiritual formation. Okay. Many parents want to help their kids grow spiritually, but aren't sure where to start. From your experience, what does spiritual formation really look like in the rhythms of a family beyond just church attendance or Bible reading?
Okay. I love starting with this question, but I have to say, and I'm going to give a qualification here, it's not the easy answer that people expect. I think most people think, well, just give me the one, two, three,
Mhm.
and I'll do that 1, 2, 3 add on, and everything will be okay with my child's faith. Um, I don't believe, and I think you would agree with me, that Christian formation happens separately from normal development, that has to be integrated into our everyday lives. In fact, the word formation means shaping, not just learning. And sometimes when we think about faith development, we think just about learning ideas, but we're shaped by not only what we learn, but mostly by what we love. So, when we think about shaping our children, we should focus on shaping how and what they love. It's very similar to everything you say, Jamie. I'm a big fan. I've listened to your podcasts. I've heard you speak. I'm sure your workshops are just the same. That behaviors are just the fruit on the tree, and that fruit is a reflection of the root. The fruit grows from the root, and if the roots are healthy, the fruit will be healthy. Actually, Jesus said that long before you and I were ever even around. So we can't really take credit. But so when spiritual formation or Christian formation is treated like an add-on, like something that we can just put on an already grown tree, it doesn't become a part of a child's normal ongoing growth. And in my experience, uh, a faith has to be strong enough and flexible enough to withstand struggle, questions, and change. And so it's really important for faith to be rooted deeply in every area of our lives. And I can
Mhm.
talk about how rooted families helps with that if you'd like.
I would love to. I would love to kind of highlight that resource. You and I have been able to, I mean, it's awesome. Do you call it a curriculum or a framework
I
or
usually call it resources because a
I love it.
curriculum sort of indicates a way to do it, but yeah,
Yes. Yeah, I was able to get my eyes on that in the early stages of it. And
yes, you
I was
were.
just so excited about it because um, I think that I think that the world, not I think, I know the world can get really noisy. And there's a lot of info and a lot of advice and a lot of suggestions. And I love rooted families. And I'm going to let you talk about it, but I love the resource of rooted families because it really does help with that integration piece that you're talking about. It doesn't feel like an additional one more thing to do and talk about, I mean, in the season of Christmas, like that
Yeah,
is the name of the game. Like, okay, what else can I fit in here? What other school project is there? What other, supplies do I need to send in for the Christmas party or whatever? And so I do love that you said integration because it
yeah,
really is a way to just integrate it to your daily rhythm so that it doesn't feel like one more thing to add to your plate.
exactly. Yeah, I'm hoping that that's true, that that's what caregivers experience when they read it. And you were hugely instrumental in the original writing of the guidebook. And then, in addition to a guidebook, caregivers or people who sign up will receive quarterly resources for different stages of development. And just for your audience, we use the word caregivers because it's written for more than just parents, but for grandparents, for teachers, coaches, mentors, and it reaches across all stages of development from infants to college students. So, but the resources in rooted families, they provide practices that influence children, including adolescents and young adults in their faith development. So it's easy to sometimes focus on just little children, but faith development happens, as you recall well, primarily in your college years, right? It becomes
Mhm.
your own, and that begins early in high school, um, and branches through basically the rest of your life, but it's highly motivated in college years. So
Mhm.
the practices they're different than the normal spiritual practices that we typically think about: prayer, reading your Bible. Not that those aren't important, but we try to focus on areas of development and independence
Mhm.
that are particularly important and difficult for kids. So we feel like if we can bring faith into those spots they're very prevalent in the lives of children, and see how Jesus is normally involved in that, then it's part of that deepening integration. And then the second thing that Rooted Families really hopes to do is give caregivers of all kinds just confidence to
Mhm.
meet the children that they love where they're at and help them have a greater understanding of who they are in that stage and who Jesus is in their daily experience.
Mm, that's great. I love that. I love that. So, so much of what we talk about on this podcast and what I get to do with families is we talk about um, how to model these practices, right?
Yeah.
So much of what we're talking about with like emotional intelligence or emotional wellness or spiritual formation, I use the language of it's more caught than taught. And
Yeah.
so we model that as parents. And so, what are some really practical ways that parents can grow their own spiritual practices like prayer, reflection, gratitude, you name it? There are so many different spiritual practices, but how how can parents grow those practices in ways that naturally overflow into their parenting? Because again, we're really looking through the lens of integration. Because the
Right.
last thing I want is a mama to listen to this, or a dad, whoever, grandpa, grandma. The last thing I want is for someone to listen to this and think, oh, well, I've got to be doing this, and this, right?
Mhm.
So,
Right.
how can they grow that where it naturally overflows into their daily life so that it is caught and not so much taught, like telling our kids
Right.
this is what you should be doing or shouldn't be doing? Like, let's help
Yes.
them catch these spiritual practices.
Yeah, and just to illustrate that, you don't realize how much it's true until your children become parents themselves and you see yourself, you see what you model to your children in the way that they're raising their children, good and bad, right? The things that you love and the things that you're like, oh, did I do that? But it's a beautiful reflection of the gift or I mean, responsibility sounds too, but it is a responsibility that God gives us in raising our children. So we pass on the things that we love. So with knowing that we don't have time to go into particular modes, I will say this, and it goes back to this idea of cultivating your loves. If you do spiritual practices because you think you should to curry favor or look good, it will never sustain you or anyone else. So if you think about your spiritual practices as ways to meet Jesus in a day-to-day way, and that's going to vary for different people. Some people will feel more inclined toward music and listening to words. Some people will feel inclined to journaling. Some will feel inclined to reading the word. Um, some will feel inclined actually to outside activities, to serving. But I think that's really based on personality, and sometimes actually you cultivate different practices for different seasons of your life. What I want to say to you is that you cannot give to your children something that you don't have yourself. And so a big part of the way I think God works in our lives with our own children is that He lets us see that as we look at our children. And so He says, look, if you want to say this about me to your kids, do you believe it yourself? Do you believe that I'm a loving God? Do you believe that I'm meeting you in this place of uncertainty? And if so, then you can actually share that with your child. It's the same concept that you call attunement,
Mhm.
emotional attunement, right? So I don't know that there's a technical word for spiritual attunement, but it would act in a very similar way that when we trust that Jesus is in the midst of our anxiety or whatever we're experiencing, and we say that to our children, if that's not a real part of our experience, then it's going to fall short with our kiddos. And like you, I really encourage practicing faith as a family.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that everybody has to do the same thing, but if we see what we're giving as something that we communally celebrate, then it's affirmed as a gathered family. And just one quick example, when I host my grandkids a lot at our house to spend the night, and when I tuck them in at night, and I always make sure that I thank them or I thank God for letting them be a part of my life, then they understand that I trust God and that God must be trustworthy because they don't have enough experience to see him as trustworthy. But because they do trust me, and I build into their heart this idea that he is trustworthy, that grows their understanding of his character and nature.
Mm. I love that. You know, as you were talking, I was kind of thinking through like how our family really, what do we do on a day-to-day basis that does point back to the creator and the just the love and beauty and abundance in the world. And nature is how our family does
Yes.
it. It is
Yes.
very easy to be outside, even in your backyard, and then
Yeah.
point out nature, right? Point out something. And just for me specifically, it's flowers. Like I will narrate out loud to the girls and I'll be like, it's amazing to me that God made that flower and with that like little intricate, color of the petal. Like I will just say that out loud. I know they probably think I'm crazy, but I really do experience the Lord in nature. And I think that a lot of people do. And I also don't think that it's not a coincidence that when we are outside, our dopamine increases, cortisol decreases, heart rate decreases. Like that's not a
Right.
coincidence, right?
Right.
And so that's where we really experience just even those conversations. And they're very
Yeah.
quick. They don't have to be like these very, theological, not
Right.
very rarely are they. They're just these like little pockets of, you know, I'll say something and my kids might be like, yeah, cool, mom, or they might not. And like, I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
That, and then also when you were saying at nighttime, it just struck me that, obviously my world is emotions, and a lot of families that I work with, families typically work with me if they're struggling with anger, anxiety or worry, or impulse control. And I'm specifically thinking of those little worriers, that the nighttime is very difficult for a lot of kids. And it makes sense from a development perspective. They are closing their eyes for 10 to 12 hours. They don't see their loved ones for that amount of time. It's dark in their room. Like all of that from just a human being empathetic perspective, I'm like, oh, I totally get you, 8-year old. It can feel scary. And I
Yeah.
think that's why it's such a lovely time, nighttime, to just like what you just said, like just thank you, Lord, for these sweet little gifts that are running around our house. But it's just such a really great time to kind of like, what am I trying to say? Kind of like pair up maybe like a scary time with
Hmm.
prayer and with talking about God or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of thinking through that because that's when also we always have like nighttime is kind of our rhythm as well. We'll read a Bible story out of right now we're in Book of Belonging, which I absolutely love. Have you seen that, Jennifer? Have you seen
Yes.
that?
It's a
I
great
love
book.
it
It's a
so
great book.
much. So we're rolling through that. We're almost done with that. And then we always say the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
And then we will just as a family, we just started doing this a couple of weeks ago. Our youngest said it. She was like, out of that prayer, what do you want to focus on in the next couple of days? And
Mm.
so that's what we do. We'll say the Lord's Prayer together and then we each name either like, so hallowed be their name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Each of us will say something that either stands out to us or something that we really want to like focus on and meditate on for the next couple of days. It's so easy, it's so
So
quick,
easy.
but it's
Yeah.
it's things like that um I just think are really practical for parents because again, we just want to make it needs to flow naturally.
Yeah. And that goes back to why I said sometimes we want to find the perfect add-on package that we just need to
Yeah.
learn and add on, but you don't have time for true integration unless it's a part of your normal life. So you're just expressing your experience of God as you understand Him in creation and sharing that with your children. So it's a natural extension. And just to piggyback on that, since you brought up Christmas and the crazy season of it, I think that the best way to shape our children in understanding their faith development is to think of it more as a story rather than faith development as a moral code. Because I think they can tell a story over and over again. They can see themselves as participating in the story. But if it's just a list of do's or don'ts, then it falls short in terms of shaping their loves. So it becomes information, not transformation. And
Mhm.
so the goal is for true formative Christian Christ-centered transformation. So let's just take Christmas because it's a great part of the story for in our faith, right? We love to celebrate the story of Jesus' birth, and kids love it because they understand birthdays. But the thing I think that we forget about is that it's not just about the day. And a lot of times we celebrate things to primarily focus on at the end of a process, like winning a game or getting a good grade, as opposed to focus on the process that it takes to win a game or to get a good grade. You have to study every day and you have to go to practice. So when we live into the story of Christmas or Advent, which is Advent is just the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas, and the word Advent means the coming of Christ. So in our Christian story, we do celebrate that Jesus was born, but we also celebrate or look forward to his return when he sets things right. So we have a both and. And I think what we can do with children is help them understand that in the waiting for Christmas, we're learning peace, contentment, patience, which are all things that we would like our children to have and for us to have as well. But even if it's just counting days, we use that sometimes with an advent calendar. You open a day and you count the day. That's a good way. Or if you just mark it out on a calendar. But like you said, at night, then thanking God for the day and still anticipating, looking forward to Christmas as we celebrate the morning of his birth. The only other thing I would add is that if depending on your children's age, if you can add something concrete about Jesus. So for instance, in John 8:11, Jesus says, I'm the light of the world, right? There's so many lights at Christmas. It's easy to connect. If we go and see Christmas lights, oh yeah, Jesus says he's the light of the world. These are beautiful lights. And I know that not all lights are about Jesus. There's Christmas and or Santa Claus and snowmen and all that stuff. But we're still associating Jesus as the light. And you can, like you talked about with your kids talking about the flowers, you can look at different sources of light. Like, do you put a Christmas star on the tree? Does that reflect Jesus's the place where God had a star shine over his birthplace to reflect that he is bringing light to the world? You can light candles. Advent wreaths often have candles that you light weekly, or a flashlight. I love flashlights. They're the greatest toys in the world. If you just, the minute you turn it on, just say, Jesus is the light. Thank you, Jesus, for the light. And you can do that at a table to incorporate it as part of a prayer. The key thing is, depending on your child's age, so under about 8 or 9, they don't really have enough experience to understand time, right? So the idea of waiting is really an abstract concept to them. But when we normalize the idea of waiting, then it builds sort of this ability to be patient, to delay gratification, to have contentment in the day. And I think that's a really important part of this month.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I really like the idea of bringing it back to those concrete things,
Yes.
like light, right? You can
Yes.
see it. You can, they've had enough experience, life experience, even as younger kiddos, to know the difference between a dark room and a light room.
Yep.
I was just, while you were saying that, I was thinking through how awesome it is that when Jesus was walking on the earth, he talked about like being the good shepherd and bread of life. And those are,
Yep.
and the light of the world. And
Yep.
those are all very concrete things. So,
Yep.
how gracious. Because that gives us a very concrete thing for our fully developed brain, but then our kiddos' developing
Yes.
brains.
Yes.
It's
I mean,
wonderful.
outside of Christmas, how fun would it be to make bread with your child or children? Just the process of kneading, and you have to wait for it to rise, you have to punch it down again. I mean, all of those are really tell of our cyclical nature of development, but in the end, you get a beautiful, the smell, the taste, and Jesus is nourishing us in the same way that bread does.
It's wonderful. Okay, so on this podcast, it's called Emotions with Ease. So we talk a lot about
Yes.
emotions, right? And so I would love to just hear you talk about how you see emotional wellness and spiritual formation overlapping for families. And more specifically, what can parents do to help kids see God or their faith as a safe place for their
Yeah.
big feelings and their hard feelings?
Yeah. Oh, I think I totally agree with what you teach in this area. And at the risk of being a groupie, I do want to say that I have listened um, to most, especially the early podcasts where you explain so many tools. And I love the way that you make the you name the emotions with animals that they can understand, the wise owl, the watchdog, and the possum, right? Do you call does the possum have any other adjective or just a possum?
It's the possum brain, and that's the freeze state because some kiddos go,
Yes.
and adults, we go into freeze state.
Yes.
Also,
Yeah.
just a little plug if you want more info on that, that is Dan Siegel and man, I always forget her name, Robin Gobble. They both have
Yeah.
great books that kind of mention some of that too. So, for my readers
Yeah.
out there, go grab Whole Brain Child and Raising Kids with Big Baffling Behaviors. Okay,
Yes.
continue.
Yes. So I, like you, believe that if children are not able to name their emotions, what happens is they're just in there welling up in their hearts and their brains and kind of overtaking them in a way that they feel overwhelmed. I found that some children, and I don't know that we can say it's just boys and girls, but some children are, it's easier for them to name their emotions than others.
Mhm.
Um, and so you have to kind of work with them differently. But when you give them something to compare it to, in the early days, I used to compare it to colors. You know, help my children had a color wheel and let them describe to me what they like about each color. And then let's just connect it with an emotion. That way they could say, this is a yellow. I'm feeling yellow today, or I'm feeling blue or red. Either way, that it's an important way for children to connect with what they're experiencing in a way that isn't overwhelming. So that part is intrinsic. The only thing that I would probably add on in terms of formation is talking to Jesus about these emotions. Because again, if children are taught that there's acceptable behaviors and non-acceptable behaviors in their relationship with Jesus, then they begin to question themselves whether or not the way they're feeling is okay.
Mhm.
And so to bring their experience of their emotions into a time with Jesus just helps them to see that no, they can't, not only can they not hide anything from God, there's no need to hide it from him, because he already knows. So if you yourself or your child is dealing with a reoccurring emotion, it's okay to continue to name that in the context of prayer. And that even if they feel like it's bothering them over and over again, that Jesus is offering his peace in the midst of that, that he is bigger than the emotion. I think that's the key thing, is that he offers an overarching protection or umbrella that children have a harder time connecting to, but even adults have to practice submitting their heart to, instead of trying to figure it out themselves, saying, Lord, I can't always do this on my own, but I trust that you're here with me and that you're going to continue to help me in this process of learning to be wholehearted.
Mhm.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. It makes total sense. Um, for some of these harder emotions, obviously, that like we have been through a year of grief,
Yes.
and anger and sadness come up with that
Yeah.
process. And we have really, it's been great to be able to go to the Psalms for that because wow, what an emotional roller coaster the Psalms are. And so I think that that part has been really, really great for us in
Yeah.
a very practical way of saying, like, hey, even lament, like my kids now know what lament means because we've
Yeah.
talked about it and defined it and really talked about how does it feel in your body to lament. And Meredith Miller, are you aware of her content? Meredith Miller,
No.
she is just, she wrote curriculum for, now I cannot remember. Anyway, she was like a children's a ministry director, children's minister for a very long time. She
Okay.
produces great content. She's written one book and then she's in the midst of writing another book right now. But she talks about, she has this podcast. I don't know that she's doing it anymore right now, but it's called Ask Away. And it's her and her kids. And she will read a Bible story and then she'll be like, okay, what's weird about it? What questions do you have? And the kids just like interject, and they're our kids' age. So it's, my girls love listening to it. It's such fun. It's just so fun to, listen to her as a mom interact with her kids with the scriptures, with
Yeah.
the Bible. But she talks about how she teaches her kids in prayer life to say, like, hey, God, I'm feeling really confused in this area. And then she says, what gives? Like
Yeah.
as they're talking. So it's just like a
Yeah.
conversation like, God, what gives? I'm really having a hard time here. I'm really feeling angry here. I'm really feeling frustrated here. What gives? And it just provides a really lightheartedness of like, and
Yeah.
also an invitation to this reciprocity of a conversation with
Right.
God in whatever way that looks like.
Right.
So I love that as a very practical way to just open, like invite kids to
Yeah.
have that conversation with God of like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm really confused right now. And what's going on? You know?
Yeah. No, I think that's great. Another expression that you can do, and forgive me if this seems heretical, but I have an entire Bible that I just draw and paint in.
Mm.
And I draw and paint something that my Psalms are almost all full because I paint what's reflected in the Psalm and my experience of it. And some of it's really beautiful and some of it's kind of dark.
Yeah, for sure.
Excuse me. But my kids, my adult children, when they first saw it, were concerned that I was covering up the words. And I reassured them that I have lots of Bibles that I can read the words in, but I only have one that I can actually express myself in color and drawing. So I think it would be a great, if you had a special Bible for your children to just be able to paint or draw or color. But before you do it, not just like random white paper, but by looking at, like, from one of my favorites, because I struggle with anxiety, is Psalm 27, the Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? So there's a big picture of a sunrise in that. And I underline, whom shall I fear? If he is the light that's dispelling all the darkness, what do I need to be afraid of?
Mhm.
So that is a practical way, um, instead of just talking about it, but allowing a child to express something with their body and their creativity, a
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah, that's a really great tool. And actually, I want to kind of lean into this question. My question is, what are some other really practical ways that, you have found in your experience that are helpful for kids to experience, like, not just talk about it cognitively, but
Mhm.
experience God's goodness. And here's the reason for this question. When I was a school counselor, I had a lot of kids. I worked in a Christian school, and anxiety in particular, these sweet students would come into my office and they were struggling with anxiety, lots of ruminating worries. And I would say, okay, so what tools do you have? And inevitably, Jennifer, they would just say, I have, well, my parents tell me to pray about it and to memorize a verse.
Right. Scripture.
Yeah. And when they would say it though, truly there was guilt, like it was a heaviness, right?
Right.
Because when that's all we give our kids, when that's the only thing, when we're like, just pray to God about it and here, memorize this memory verse. If those are the only things that we're giving to our kids and then it doesn't quote unquote work, as in like, I'm struggling, I can't go to bed at night. These kids, and we're not meaning to, these parents are
Mm-mm.
very well meaning, intentional, great parents. But what I saw in my office was that the message that was being sent to these sweet kiddos indirectly was that my faith isn't big enough. right? Like I'm
Right.
doing something wrong because I am still stuck in this worry and anxiety and these feelings that don't feel good in my brain and my body. And so that's also, that lit a fire under me because I wanted to first off, tell these kiddos, hey, listen, um, your goal is not to get rid of the anxiety. It's just not. We're not going to resist it. We're actually going to lean into it. And here are some other tools that I want you to try. I want you to learn about your brain. I want you to learn about the neuroscience in a kid friendly way. I want you to learn what's happening in your nervous system so that you can have other tools and also talk to God about it. And here's some really practical ways to talk to God about it. And
Yeah.
here's some more verses to memorize because that is a tool. Absolutely. But when we only give our kids those two tools and then we say good luck, that is not sometimes I don't want to say it's not enough, but there's so much more. There's so much more that we can be doing and so many more tools that we can give our kids. So,
Right.
when you were talking about the painting, that's such a great, oh my gosh. And painting is such a like it's a bilateral brain integration activity, even something like that. Like, you know, uh, pull out honestly, I've thought about buying another copy of the Book of Belonging because the pictures are so gorgeous and I just want to like rip out the pictures. So
Yeah.
something like that, like
Yeah.
go to Goodwill, find, an inexpensive Bible devotional that you can rip out the pages and then do have your kids like make collages. Anything like that. I'm kind of riffing because I do get really passionate about this because I can see those sweet little kids' faces in my office that were just struggling. And I was so grateful to be able to give them more tools that are helpful. So,
Yeah.
can you kind of riff on that a little bit? I'm throwing you a, whatever. I'm throwing
That's
you.
okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to take it into my experience with older young adults
Yeah.
and even the adults that I meet with now, parents your age that,
Yeah.
or parents that are empty nesters. But primarily young adults to midlife parents, if they've never fully developed a relationship with Jesus in understanding his character, then they naturally assume when they read things like Romans 8:28 that says God causes all things to work together for those who love God. He causes all things together for good for those who love God. So we naturally assume that that good would be what I consider good,
Yes.
right? What I want. So, taking what you said about those young children, if they're experiencing negative and we say that God is good, then they're thinking either you're lying to me because what I'm experiencing is not good, or I don't like it, or maybe I'm not good enough to have the good. There's just a number of things that happen in their brain. And so that's what I mean about the roots have to be deep enough into God's understand into God himself so that we're not imposing or projecting our understanding of the way that we understand God into who we want him to be. So your question, I mean, is so broad across the spans, but I will say to you that working with college students for so many years, and maybe you even remember this, there's a place where they have to kind of be reoriented to say, oh, maybe this is not who God actually is. So I don't put in a quarter and he gives me back what I want. Like he's not a vending machine. Um, and I think that to learn to love a person's character just takes time and practice. And that's really what spiritual practices are. It's more about knowing God's character rather than assuming I have to perform to be loved by him. And I know that you said asked me to riff, so I want to be practical. Let's just take littler kids under the age of 10. And so like 5 to 10, let's do that because toddlers are a whole different ball game. But for instance, um, at that stage, they really want to figure things out, right? They want to figure out how things work. So if you were just to take several boxes, little boxes with lids, and you were to take something easy like buttons or pom-poms that have different colors, and you would separate those colors by things in your life that you like or that are difficult. And the practice of sorting is just it's a really good process because you're kind of saying, okay, I love eating cookies or whatever, but I don't love math homework. And so you sorted them into boxes. But the reason that they're small enough is that then you also want to illustrate that all those boxes can be put into a larger box that God is using to sort all that together to continue to make that child or you yourself into the person that he intends you to be. He's helping you to become more fully yourself. So you have to understand what you're feeling and what name those emotions like you're so good at, but also then understand what God is doing in the midst of that. And that doesn't happen for children until they're in their adolescent stage. And they actually have to push back against their faith quite a bit in order for it to stand. And that's okay. Just as parents or caregivers, sometimes we don't like them to push back. And so we do say silly, kind of trite things like go memorize scripture or just trust God, which it just sounds like wah, wah, wah,
Mhm.
right? It doesn't mean anything to a child who's really struggling. You can memorize scripture, but let's talk about what scripture you're choosing. So when you talk about the Lord's Prayer, let's pick apart the lines and say, what do they actually mean from God's perspective? Not what you want them to mean, but what does it mean? If God says to pray, give us this day our daily bread, does that mean you should be ruminating or worrying about what happens next week? Or should you just be aware of what's happening today? So without talking for years and years, does that sort of give you an answer to what you were
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah. This takes me back to 20 years ago in your office. You're just the things that you're saying and yeah, just the way that you talk about all of it is just calming. Your voice is calming. The way that you make kind of heady concepts practical. I'm literally like nostalgic over here because I'm like, oh, I'm back in Jennifer's office and she's teaching me all the things about life.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Oh,
Do you remember? This is a funny story. Do you remember one time I was going to teach you how to cook?
oh, geez, no.
You don't remember the summer you were at Discipleship Focus?
Oh, I do remember that. I
You
do
remember the
remember
story?
that. No, what happened? Tell
Well,
me.
we were doing cooking lessons, and I love teaching people to cook, and I loved especially teaching you because you knew nothing.
I know nothing, like literally nothing.
And so it was fairly easy because I could just, give you some things. Well, one time I'm kind of famous for waffles, and I make waffles with egg whites.
Oh, jeez.
And so I told you, I said, take these two eggs, separate them, and bring me the whites. And do you know what you brought me?
Yeah, I know exactly what I brought you. The white part of the egg, which is the eggshell, Jennifer.
The shells. And I looked at you and I thought you were teasing me. And I said, what are you doing? And you said, you said bring me the whites. And I thought, well, that is true. They are the whitest part. But I said, have you ever eaten an eggshell?
No, I
So
haven't. And truly, I still stand by that. I still stand by that mistake that it is silly that that is called the egg white and it's not the white part, which is the shell.
I agree. But when you whip it, it gets white, right? So case in point, even
Mhm.
though that's one of my favorite memories of you, I mean, there are literally hundreds of memories where people have an assumption about a word
Mm.
and then they translate it into their everyday life. And it makes sense, but until we understand perhaps what a different meaning or a larger perspective is, we can't change.
Mhm.
And so our faith formation really has to do with looking at the whole story of God, not just what we want to happen in our own lives, but what God is doing in the lives of all people together, and how we fit into that story.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. That makes me think of just like having those conversations in the car, with your kiddo out of
Yes.
nowhere, like the most random question pops up and you're like, oh, okay, we're going there. Great. What do you think about that, kiddo? Yeah, that's great. I
Yeah.
love just the open-endedness invitation of just when life comes up, like
Yeah.
do life together and ask the
Yeah.
questions. And Like, okay, so what do you think that means about God? To your
Yes.
point, because we are all continually formulating. I mean, it's just the human experience. You formulate what you think, who you think, how you think God is relating to you, to the world. And so constantly having those conversations of just like, and also the conversations being, I am, especially when we're talking spirituality, I want 90%, maybe 80% of what I say to end with a question mark instead of a
Yeah.
period. Because
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily raised like that. Like I had a lot of periods, right? Like the people in my life, the whatever, parents, pastors, youth pastors. There was a lot of people telling me what I needed to do and what I needed to believe. And
Right.
um, I have really enjoyed parenting our kiddos with a lot of question marks, like, well,
Yeah.
what do you think about it? And well, how do you experience it? Because I don't want to do more work than they're doing, like
Right.
if I'm telling them, regurgitating what I believe and think and do and all the things, then I am taking away their formation, their literal, like they got to process. And who better to
Yeah.
process than with Justin and I?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay. Were
when
you
you're
gonna say
thinking
something
about
else?
the, well, I was just going to say, when you're thinking about the practical implications of that, what you can do, you ask them their opinion. But if there's a statement, like go back to um, the author that you says what gives.
Mhm.
If you state something about God that he already says about himself, like the concrete things, like God is light, what do you think it means when it says that God is light? What does it mean to have light in your life in this exact moment?
Mhm.
So you're guiding the questions, but not necessarily giving the answers. I think that's the key part of caregivers loving the development of their children's faith.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to land the plane. We just got a couple more questions. Okay.
Okay.
For the parent listening who feels spiritually dry or unsure, especially at Christmas time. Oh my word, especially at Christmas time. There's just so much hurt and so many
Yeah.
hard stories, and the holidays are just like I don't know, I feel like a crock pot for all of that, It's just been
Yeah.
simmering all year and now it's like bubbling to a boil. But what encouragement or even first step would you like to offer that person? How can they begin reconnecting with their faith so they can lead their kids from a place of authenticity and peace? What would you say to that person out there who's listening? Who, you know what? Let's also just acknowledge the rock star listener that they are because
Yeah.
they've waded through the assumption that, they're feeling good about their faith and they're feeling good about their relationship with um, their God, whatever that means to them. Like we've
Yeah.
assumed a lot in this conversation
Yeah.
about somebody that's listening. So, first off, if you are in that boat and you are still listening, man, I mean, I'm like standing ovation for you right now because that says a lot about your character and that you really are leaning in and wanting, craving that connection that maybe has
Yes.
felt it hasn't been there in a while, in decades, ever. So, first off, I just want to acknowledge that person. And then, second of all, Jennifer, what do you want to say to that person?
Well, first of all, I like you would want to validate that it's easy to feel disconnected from yourself
Hmm.
and perhaps other people or God.
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm getting over a cold, so I that sounds scratchy.
Tis the season. Tis the season.
Yeah, tis the season. In fact, sometimes I feel like I wind myself up like an old-fashioned top. Do you remember those? I'm dating myself. That you tie the string around and pull it out, and then it just runs till it drops. Like it's beautiful and spins, spins, spins,
Yeah.
and then it's exhausted. So, but I've gone over in my mind, is there a nice sugary way to talk about connection? And there just isn't a better way to reconnect to God than just a little bit of silence. And silence is like the prize commodity that we have a hard time finding. So when I say that, I never want to make someone feel guilty. But the only way to re-energize our heart is to have enough margin and space to actually hear
Mhm.
not only our own thoughts, but the spirit. speaking to us, because the Spirit is not going to try to overpower social media or
Mhm.
even good podcasts like this one or music or games or thoughts. The Spirit is just going to gently continue to speak quietly and peacefully in our hearts. So we have to be quiet enough to hear it. Um, and I think we can sneak it in, even if it seems like, well, I can't find any, so I can't do this. So a couple things that I thought about is when we get in the car, we might immediately turn on music or information, but just be quiet for a minute. I mean, even 3 minutes is helpful. Or in the shower, be quiet in the shower. Don't play any music or whatever. Another one, we've talked about this before, is just before you go to bed, we don't like we typically keep our phone right before us before we go to bed, or a television or a computer or our to-do list. But if you think about preparing to go to bed, if you put everything away and sit up in bed before you lay down, take a deep breath, think about the day, and just allow the day to spin through, and think about the things that were both good and hard, but place them kind of and tuck them in and say, this was today. Lord, help me to sleep tonight, and we'll do it again tomorrow. And so there's a place there where you've invited the quiet to sort of infiltrate you. The only last suggestion I have is maybe like I love to take a break and have coffee or tea. I drink coffee in the morning and I sip tea in the afternoon. And my instinct when I do that is, oh, I've got some time I could ruminate on social media or read a novel or something. But I found if I just, when I sit down, even though it feels awkward to do nothing with my hands other than to drink or to sip, there's a little bit of quiet that comes. And you only need 3 to 5 minutes to kind of just re-energize.
Mhm. When you said that, I literally I thought of like the mama who has like a toddler and a baby. She's nursing a baby, and she's like, I like anytime I sit with anything, like there's like I'm dripping with kids. And even in that, in those moments when I remember in that season of my life that I just did breath prayers of
Yes.
literally like just Lord Jesus, like in through my nose, Lord Jesus, and then out through my
Yes.
mouth, have mercy. Lord Jesus,
Yes.
have mercy. Or you know what else I did? This is not from the Bible, but I always thought like I would be like, Jesus, take the wheel. Jesus, take the wheel. And it was
Yes.
just like a reset, but it also kind of made me laugh in my brain.
Yeah.
So anyways, just yes, I love that. Have you read The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry?
Yes.
Okay,
So good.
it's so good. It's so practical. I'm rereading it right now. And it's so funny that you just said that of silence because I just finished the chapter on silence and now I'm on the chapter of just slowing. It's the last chapter.
Yeah.
And it's just it's almost so practical. It's comical. Like one of his things is literally just go the speed limit. Like, just,
Yes.
hey,
Yes.
what a novel idea. Like,
Yeah.
don't break the law and go faster than what you're supposed to go. Just go the speed limit.
Yes.
Because we are, and especially at Christmas time, it is go, go, go as fast as you can.
Yeah.
And so, yes, to your point, instead of, and I need this reminder because I love to learn. And so I always have a podcast in my, I'm always listening to a podcast or something,
Mhm.
or listening to a book on audio. But just, yeah, to your point of just like literally sitting there, giving yourself, and it's going to feel awful. There's a
It does.
study. I'm going to totally butcher the details because I haven't looked it up in a while, but there was a study done that they brought people in. Gosh, okay, seriously, I'm going to butcher it, but essentially they brought people into a room, and the goal was like you just sat there and you sat there for a certain amount of time, but in some of the in like one of the rooms, you could sit in there and you could literally push a button that would shock you. Do you know what I'm talking about? The
I do.
study?
I know the study. And they push the button rather than sit in silence.
Yes, they would push the button.
Mhm.
They would literally rather feel a shock than sit in silence
Mhm.
for an amount of time. And we're talking minutes, we're not talking hours here.
Right.
And so, just that idea of it's not going to feel good. Your brain is going to be like, no, you're not being productive. You're not getting things
Right.
done. Like, this is stupid. Your brain is literally going to say those things. Just know your brain is going to say those things and say, thank you, brain, for trying to serve me, but I'm sitting in silence. I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes. And that is what I'm
Yeah.
doing right now. And just see what
Yeah.
happens. And maybe nothing. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely not going to harm anything. So that's a good tip. Okay, so last two. What's an emotion you're currently getting stuck in? I ask every interview this.
Yeah.
What's emotion you're currently getting stuck in, and what's a go-to tool that you're using right now to regulate to get back to that calm regulated state?
Okay, so I still struggle with anxiety. I wish I didn't, but I have my whole life, and it rears its head in different seasons in different ways. It's pretty hefty right now because we're in a new community and
Mhm.
new home and lots of newness. And so my I can name it. I know what it is. It spins, it makes me a little bit irrational, but I then start trying to I try to own myself based on the lens of the anxiety. So the only way I know how to get out of it, I don't think you're going to laugh, but I reach my hands to the sky. I stand up and I reach my fingers to the sky and I say, Lord, I know that I am more than this anxiety. So I'm stretching really up high and speaking out loud the fact that I am more than my anxiety. And then I lean down over and touch my toes and just dangle there for a minute. And of course, the blood rushes to my head and it kind of re-energizes me in a different way. But that helps break that really crucial spinning cycle that cripples me. Um, if I can't do that, I do just deep breaths, like you often talk about. Like if I'm sitting in public somewhere or in an auditorium where I can't stand up and touch my toes. But both of them, I've just found if I connect my body with my brain, I can't just silence it in my brain. I have to bring my body into it in order for it to stop the pattern.
That is awesome. And that what you just described is what I like to call like states and stories. You
Okay.
changed your state, your physiological state by moving your body. And then also you went to story as well. You
Yeah.
planted in a new neural path, like a new thought loop to
Yeah.
ruminate on. So you did two in one, which is like, of course you did. You're such a achiever. You do all the things. So you right then that tool changed your state, changed your story, and then you're ready to go. That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much. It's super practical. Okay. I'm going to assume that everyone listening is like, I need more of her voice in my life because it's so calming. It really does just bring me right back to your office at College of the Ozarks. Um, I need more of her in my life. I'm interested in this rooted families. Where can people, I know I said it in the bio, but can you remind people where can they find you? What's their next step if they want to learn more about you or rooted families?
Yeah. So if you would like to learn more, I have a website, jenniferfreeman.co, not com, but co.
Oh,
Um, and that's easy. There's places you can sign up or contact me. Yeah, I love to meet one-on-one with individuals. And then rooted families, if you just look up rootedfamilies dot cofo.edu, that is the website. And those resources are free. People just sign up for the resource, and then it gets the initial resource is a book, and then they will be sent quarterly resources after that
that's
that are
great.
free.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And the book, you pay for shipping for the book, but it's an actual physical book that you get.
It is.
And then
Yeah,
the rest of the resources are digital, right?
correct. Yeah.
That's
And the
great.
book is very pretty, easy to read, not
Mhm.
long. Yeah, it comes in a fun box. So if kids see it, we've tried to package the box so they enjoy it too. And yeah,
That's great. That's great. I'm so proud of the work that you're doing. And
thank
I'm just so
you.
excited for this season of life for you and Jim, your husband. You guys, well, I should have said this at the beginning, but you guys did our premarital counseling and then Jim married us. So you
Yes.
guys have just been such cheerleaders for Justin and I, and we're so grateful for you. I'm just so grateful to have you in my life and to visualize you. I told you this, I think the other day I sent you a voice memo, but um, I love thinking about you and Jim with your kids and your grandkids in Arkansas. And I'm just rooting for you in this season of life. And I'm just so grateful that you came on today to give us some of your wisdom.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. I love you in the same ways.